Hello, Internet. It's Daniel with Driving and Dragons, and today I'm going to start something a little bit new. It's a little bit of a internet experiment here, but let's write an adventure. See you on the other side. So let's write an adventure. What do I mean? Well, we've got Let's Plays and live plays and watch-alongs and all kinds of other stuff out there on YouTube. And one thing that I haven't really seen much of, I don't think I've seen it at all, for Game Masters TTRPGs is, I guess you could call them a Let's Write, but development of adventures and campaigns. Okay, why not kind of tag along in that, participate, get some comment participation and whatnot as well. But what I've got going on is I am currently drafting the first adventure for my Cyberpunk Red table. With my group is switching to Cyberpunk Red, and I'm drawing up that first adventure, that first campaign. So I figured, why not just go along, and as I'm moving through the process, let's just go ahead and document that here on the channel, and maybe get some input from anybody who happens to watch it. And at the end, we'll just have a nice little lengthy series that shows different steps in the creation of how I put together adventures, and maybe something others can use and others can take part in. And one thing I do want to do with it, and I'm going to try this, and hopefully it comes out successfully, is I want to do some adaptation on it as well. So, for instance, if I take a particular situation, like I'm writing this for Cyberpunk Red, because that's what my table's playing right now. But I want to throw some ideas in there about how to adapt it for different settings. Like, for instance, how I can put it into a spacefaring setting or a high fantasy setting, something of that nature. Because I'm a big believer that one of the best ways to write campaigns for different games is just use what I call creative anachronism, where I'm going to take the shootout at the OK Corral and find a way to move it into a medieval time or a Dark Ages time, or I'm going to take the Saxon, the Danish invasion of the Saxons, or the Saxon invasion of Britain, and I'm going to move it into a spacefaring setting, or the Napoleonic Wars are going to get put into a modern day setting, whatever the case may be. I believe that is an easy source for game masters to put together some very memorable adventures and have a good framework in place. So the basis for what I'm doing here is to, hopefully I'll get some participation, and this turns into something that we all as a community create, something truly unique. One of the big reasons that you might use a adventure module as opposed to writing your own adventure as a game master or a DM comes from the fact that your players will eventually learn your storytelling tics. They'll learn the way you like to structure adventures. They'll learn the way certain NPCs work or certain things that you do. So, for instance, we can all think of something, but here's an example. You might have a game master who, if there is an NPC who looks like a good guy that is definitely going to betray the party at some point in time, is definitely really a bad guy, he's going to have some particular kind of tic, and you're going to pick it up. It might be something like, let's use something that's overly obvious. Every single bad guy in this guy's campaigns is a Weasley, tall, arrogant guy with a mustache. And if somebody is in any way described with any kind of like rodent-like or weasel-like features and has kind of a high-minded, superior attitude, no matter what position they're in, he's always a bad guy. He can be the guy who's giving you quests in the very beginning. He's always a bad guy. You pick up on these little things, as you play with somebody. You pick up on certain story beats, how many encounters they tend to have in their games or their adventures. Do they have a certain propensity for setting up surprises and surprise attacks or ambushes or certain security features or something like that? Do they have a tendency to do this kind of thing? And as you play with a game master for a long time, you pick them up. Well, if you use an adventure module written by somebody else, or if you have a game that just so happens to be kind of cobbled together by the community as a whole with, dozens, hundreds, thousands, whatever number of minds having little bits of input, little ideas thrown in there, you come up with a game that's wholly unique, and there's no way that anybody can really trace it because it doesn't come from a single familiar mind. So, the premise of my current cyberpunk adventure, this will be the first adventure, possibly just the first session, possibly multiple sessions for my group, is I am taking the idea of the loneliest road and I am making the loneliest road adventure. I am taking two cyberpunk classics and manipulating and adapting them, changing them to fit what I want. The first is a Cyberpunk 2020 adventure that, if I'm not mistaken, is like literally in the back of the core rulebook. It's a scream sheet adventure called Open Highway. And the other is The Apartment, which is the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit adventure. In the Open Highway, the players are hired to take two sports cars and a 18-wheeler across the country into Texas, and they're hauling what Biotechnica, actually I think they take them to Nashville, but they're hiring what Biotechnica is calling and is leaked out as this super secret, super powerful enzyme that's just going to revolutionize the world. But what's really happening is they're baiting Petrochem. It's a failed experiment. They're hoping that Petrochem knocks over this convoy, takes all the research, and then spends a bunch of money reverse engineering it when it's all just a fake. It's a failed experiment. And so the players are kind of set up as patsies in that case, going from Night City to, I think it's Nashville or Knoxville, somewhere in Tennessee. All right. In The Apartment, one of the players is given an apartment building next to the combat zone. Inherited, it's kind of left up to the game master. And it turns out that WorldSat wants to build a telecommunications tower. It's going to tear down that apartment building, and players are having to defend their apartment building that they just got, or otherwise deal with this megacorp that's trying to destroy their building and put up a tower. So what I'm doing is I'm starting my players in Dodge City, Kansas. And one of them is going to they're all going to be in Dodge City, more or less stuck there for one reason or another, trying to get back out. And one of my players is going to get the call that they have been awarded, won in a contest, whatever the case may be. They're going to take possession of this apartment building if they can get there. So now they got to get there fast. And they're going to get the higher job to drive from Dodge City, Kansas to San Francisco and then down into Night City. And they're going to pick that up from Petrochem in Kansas. So that's the way it started. The reason it's called the loneliest road is because the best route for them to take is going to be to take Route 50, or U.S. Highway 50, which is known as the loneliest road in America. Goes through a lot of big, empty desert and mountainous terrain and whatnot. There's long stretches where there's no stops, and it's just desolate. And the reason they'll take that route is because they need to avoid Texas. They need to avoid the free state of Texas, so they can't cut down through the panhandle of Texas. They need to stay north of Texas, and they'll take Route 50 to do that. all the way through Reno, Nevada, and into California. It's going to be basically what I've done with Dodge City. Dodge City is, while the rest of the world moved forward in time, Dodge City kind of moved backwards. So the Time of the Red is a cyberpunk setting. It's hyper advanced. It's tons of technology that's easily accessible, coupled with crippling class divides and that sort of thing. So it's a futuristic Blade Runner type world. The Dodge City has gone the opposite direction. The city is shrunk. It's back down around the same size it was in the late 1800s, a couple thousand people at most. It is almost nothing but bars, inns, taverns, things like that for various nomad groups and whatnot to stop. There's not a lot around it because when the Fourth Corporate War happened and you have all these wars and nuclear bombs going off and orbital bombardment and all the other stuff that happens in Cyberpunk Red, these small towns like this are the ones that kind of any kind of development kind of went away in them. However, there is a biotechnic facility there where they genetically engineer cattle, which Dodge City was originally a cow town. It was a cow driving town. And then you have Continental Brands has a major warehouse there processing said genetically engineered steer meat and, handling that situation. But there's also a secret petrochem laboratory hidden in town, underneath an old abandoned warehouse underground, which is where they have developed an actual, which is where our story begins. And this one, petrochem is the one playing a trick on Savoil. Same deal. They've leaked the route and everything for this 18-wheeler trip. But this 18-wheeler trip is going to give the players their way to get back to Night City away from Dodge City, Kansas. And that's about where I'm at right now. I'm looking at I got to flesh out Dodge City. I've got to flesh out my characters from Petrochem, from Savoil. I've got to put together my nomad groups and gangs that are going to interfere with this trip while they're on the road. I've got to put together my some social encounters in some of these cities along the road, such as social encounters in Dodge City, social encounters in Reno, and social encounters in San Francisco, and that sort of thing while we're on our trip there. So, if you got any ideas, throw them down in the comment section. We'll continue from there. But I'm hoping this will be a fun little adventure for all of us to kind of play with this online, and I'll see you guys next time.